Hello. Sorry, I've had to do things manually today. Technical difficulties, as usual, because I love to plan ahead and do things ahead of time, always, at all times, and it always goes great. There's also a bit of noise in the background because they're doing garden stuff across the road. So if you hear that, there's nothing I can do about it. Not that anyone's here anyway, but that's okay. Sorry, I've been a little absent, but I have been a combination of unwell, very busy, and we've had an election in WA, Western Australia for the Americans out there, which is a state on the other side of Melbourne and Sydney. And I'm being funny about that because I do need to. I think. Okay, so part of the reason why I've been dormant, I'm always dormant when I'm not sure what to do. Because, like the content game is basically now about slop. Okay, so if you're going to either drama slop between fucking streamers or political slop in the form of sort of superficial analysis, the second that you start to talk about anything remotely complex or it depends or movie things with lots of moving parts, people switch off. Like if it's not, that's always been a problem, but it's more of a problem now. I think a lot of because I worked on the ground with the election, and it's really crystallized to me how much we let American crap infect our brains and how much we let, like, this is, as much for me as it is for anyone else, but I'm not judging anyone. This is just structurally, like, how it infects everything. Like, we're not America. I think we need to remember that we're not America, okay? These sort of ideas, especially when we're talking about sort of the left, right? You've got your media people who want to use American culture war bullshit and, American sort of leftist bullshit. But when you're on the ground, most people don't, unless you're insane or like in the Greens, like in the fringe or in student politics, most people don't give a shit about this crap, okay? They really don't. And it's, and trying to navigate that while being online, exposed to America, and American forces and American bots and American propaganda and, American idiots all the time. And it's like you end up find yourself trying to walk a line between like keeping the internet happy and actually doing the kind of stuff that you actually think is meaningful and works, right? Like, my audience is not TikTok brains. Because if you have a TikTok brain, you're not paying attention to these things. It's not going to happen. And it's the same thing where trying to appeal to people who are all about culture wars and all about that stuff. They're not my target audience because they're just mad all the time. Just mad. And like, in 2025, if you care about like culture wars shit and don't see it for the distraction that it is, then I think you are too far gone. You're mentally ill. You are... you need intervention that I'm not qualified to give, okay? Like, that's one part of it. The other part of it is that when you're building an audience online, like, the audience is in America and heavily weighted towards America and Europe, and that means then you've got to engage in their fucking bullshit. And like, one thing that has crystallized for me is, how much I love this country, how much I'm sick of their shit, how much like local stuff gets ignored and how much important local stuff gets ignored and how many important local stories get ignored because Americans just constantly dominate the space. And that's going to get worse. Like, with Trump and Elon Musk and all that stuff, it's going to get worse and worse. And I was saying this to Paul the other night, that, part of like, I'm actually at a point where I don't even think I want to do tech law. Like, if I'm honest with you, because tech law requires me to have to fucking know what's going on in the United States all the time. And it's unhealthy. Like, in Australia, we have an education system. People do, again, people are stupid, but not as stupid as Americans. We're not that stupid. Like, there's all these things that are taken as sort of truisms in marketing, and they're all like American dominated. Like this 30-second sound clip, American, okay? 5th grade reading level, 3rd grade reading level. If you want like to sell, consumer goods, that's an American standard. A lot of these things, and it's like I just sat there and I feel like it's actually just an imposition on my life. I feel like American culture wars, American politics, American like left-wing bullshit, that they fucking cancel fuck woke bullshit, all of this stuff. It just feels like a massive imposition on my space, my boundaries, my fucking time, my energy, my brain, everything. And I'm fucking sick of it. And I'm sure that a lot of people feel that way. I'm sure a lot of Americans feel that way. But that's what. So, and there is this tension. There is this constant tension between Americans who, will sign up on Patreon and they're used to paying for content. They're used to paying for stuff. And they are used to, there's a bigger pot of money there, potential pot, which I haven't broken and I haven't cracked and I won't. Because, again, you say anything and just that you say anything in America and like someone's upset. It's just constant. Okay. You can't do anything. You got to play that game, right? Of either playing the game of deliberately upsetting one or the other, or, never upsetting anyone. That's sort of the game, right? But then you've got, or trolling for profit, which I won't do. Okay. Then you've got the fact that a lot of my interests are quite niche, and I've got multiple niches. Like, I'm not going to sit and do like a channel dedicated, like, as much as I appreciate it, people are like, oh, do something on, like, specialize on this one thing. It's like, well, no, I've got a wide range of interests. Why am I going to sit there and do like 7 top tips, for your will, or like talking about tech law or anything like that. Like, I find this stuff very boring. And the second that your answer, like I said, is it depends, the second that your answer is it's complicated, the second that you go into here's how the system works, that's it. People switch off. They're gone. They're done. And it's like, okay, how the fuck do you do? How the fuck? This is, again, lifetime problem. Like, my husband was saying, like, because I was telling him about some of the things that the government's accomplished in the federal election in the lead up, and he's like, well, how do people not know that? And I said, welcome to the problem of politics. Why don't people know the accomplishments of government? Why don't they know? Good question, sir. If you can solve that, then, you've solved, all of the problems we've got. We don't have America, stupid, idiocracy. And, like, at this point, it feels beneath me, okay? And I know that, again, well, you think you're better than me because you, like, it's like, no, there's more, it's just not how shit works. And then you've got your sort of, and this is the dilemma that I find myself in. I've got different audiences that I could appeal to, that I could talk to, but I want to talk to them all. So I've got the sort of funny audience, I've got the tech audience, I've got sort of the, the sort of tech policy audience. You got your, but a lot of those are based in America. And when I do it, and when I talk to Americans, you've got to do there's certain social rules you've got to abide by if you're doing content for America. And like I said before, you've either got to troll one side, join their culture wars, or be ignored, or troll for profit. Right? That's sort of you've got to be willing to join a side or piss them off. Okay, and I'm not going to do either of those. I just talk about facts and how things work. Okay. But then when you start talking about how things work and structures and history and all that stuff, people switch off. Then when you talk about that, they go, well, who the fuck are you? You don't know, you're not American, and they don't listen to American accents. So I'm done with I'm so done with this shit, okay? But then you've got, like, the tech industry, and then you've got people like that, and they're kind of, it's like, I find it so boring. Like, there's not much we can do. There's not much I can talk about that I haven't already talked about. There's no real solutions right now when you've got Elon Musk, like, in the White House. There's nothing that anyone can meaningfully do other than sort of do palliative care at this point, at the moment, okay? A lot of it is sort of mitigating risk, palliative care. But even if I say mitigating risk, people go, what does that mean? And it's like, well, okay, so for tech policy, there's not much you can really talk about that isn't really dry kind of policy, incremental sort of risk stuff. Reports, government reports, creative solutions, that kind of thing. I could sit complaining about what Elon Musk did all day, every day, which is an easy trap to fall into. I fall into it all the time, okay? Which is I wake up and I go, what's that fuckwit done today? And it's like, oh, what am I going to do? It's me and my tiny channel versus Mark Zuckerberg. Okay, what am I going to do? Okay, what am I going to talk about? How Israel fucking have control of the internet and, like, the control of messaging right now, and that, like, what's happening? What am I going to do? What the fuck is the point in doing anything like that? You're just going to turn yourself to dust. And then if I talk anything about Australia, Americans aren't interested. Australians are increasingly more interested, of course, but then you've kind of also got to package it up in a way that, it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing. So that's kind of where I'm at, which is like, well, what does this channel do? What do I want to do with it? It's just my channel. It's just like a vlog, I suppose, of sorts that tracks my thoughts over time. And people show up, they don't show up. It's whatever. And I can't talk about the law because obviously I can't say I'm a lawyer without being a lawyer, and I'm in that sort of that space for the next year or two without, I can't actually present myself as a lawyer, so I can't give legal advice. I can't really even be perceived to be giving legal advice, so I err on the side of caution there. So that's the irony of the internet, which is that those that are most qualified to speak, or even more qualified than your average person, are heavily regulated in the way that they speak. So if an idiot is speaking with confidence online about an issue, you can guarantee that they're not subject to a board and they don't have board approval, okay? That's the paradox that we've got. But I also feel the need to sort of participate in that conversation because there's idiots out there saying stupid shit all the time that is wrong. and objectively wrong. And so, so that's sort of where I find myself. And it's like, what do you even, there's just a lot of moving parts to know where to fit, like yourself in terms of, like honestly, like sometimes I just go, if I didn't like it, I'd just nuke the lot. But I actually I do think that doing this, showing up, especially speaking to a camera and not interacting with people and just sort of speaking live, come what may, and being open to whatever sort of happens, that is a skill that it's a muscle that I need to keep exercising. So that's why I do it. Like, it's important for advocacy and persuasion and all that sort of stuff to know how to do this stuff. And it atrophies very, very quickly if you stop doing it. Okay. Because I went from being like extremely camera nervous to being able to do this. So, I use this as a tool to sort of exercise those muscles. Right. But this is the problem that, I think a lot of us have, okay? And now, again, I'm going to talk about the WA election because I think that there's some insights. And again, Americans won't be interested in this. Why aren't you talking about the thing that I want you to talk about? It was Elon Musk, what he did. It's like, I don't care. I don't care. I just can't care. You wrecked your country. Stop wrecking mine. Like that's what it comes down to. And it's like, it's you can go and wreck yours. That's fine with me. You've wrecked the internet. You've wrecked every digital platform. You've wrecked all of it. Like big parts of the book, like that I have sort of been slowly chipping away at. A lot of it, the common thread is that America can't have nice things because Americans will fucking destroy it through their selfishness and ignorance and stupidity and like just utter fucking narcissism. And it's like, well, we're not America. Maybe we can actually build something nice and better and good and stable and sensible. And that's not a bad thing. Maybe boring is a good thing, right? And it might not be exciting. It might not be interesting. It might not get millions of views. It might get fucking 10 views, which is, I'm grateful for that. But at the same time, I don't know where I fit in this space because I'm not really, I think I kind of need to just regroup and start over as though I didn't study the culture wars because honestly, the culture wars, I've solved and done and dusted that fucking problem. It's America's problem. I think that what we need to do is contain it. And one of the things that I'll talk about a little bit, the thing is, I also have a dilemma about whether I talk about the mistakes I think the Liberal Party are making with their campaign because I want them to keep making the mistake. So that's kind of like, again, if anyone happens, because I've got a few people who, they do, one thing they do is monitor online. Like they might not engage and they might not whatever, but they definitely monitor the conversations online. So I kind of don't want them to, because I have had various things over the years that I've said find their way over to the sort of, over to these agencies that are doing the campaign. So I kind of want them to keep making the same mistakes because I don't want them to win. But I think that what we need to understand is that a lot of this internet stuff is so heavily dominated by the US, but we're not the US. We're not America. And also, online is online. Like, like Twitter has come to life for some people, okay? But that's for people who are on there. For the vast majority of people, they logged off. Like they after COVID, they logged off again. They said, I'm not doing that again. And they went back to work and they went back to their lives. And yes, they might be consuming TikTok or whatever, but most people over 30 aren't consuming this shit unless they're like internet addicted or broken or like whatever. The vast majority of healthy, normal people are not hanging out on X anymore. Okay. They're not on Blue Sky. They're not on YouTube. They're not doing anything. They're going about their day. They're doing their jobs. They're hanging out with their friends and they're doing stuff. Okay. And I think you need to be mindful of that when you are navigating these spaces, that the media's job is to get you to think that the world is falling apart, that it is, that your neighbor is your enemy, that there's all of these, all of these groups, all of these, coming to get you, all of this American style paranoia bullshit. Okay. And it doesn't resonate. Doesn't resonate. That's why you're going to get these idiots online who are just arguing about politics, and they're broke, but they're not new. There's nothing new here. They're weirdos. Okay? And that's one thing that I need to sort of communicate, is that because I kind of, I tend to be, I've been in a weird intersection of these things, because I do live a somewhat of a normal life. I have never, but I'm also online, but that's just by virtue of it being a wave that I rode in my career, but still having my feet sort of anchored in real life and with people, and like it's just, a lot of this stuff is pretend. It doesn't exist. And the thing about is, if you turn it off, it stops existing. Like, it's really fascinating to me, having gone like through a campaign. And I sat there and I was a scrutineer at a booth, and I helped with some setup and stuff. But I was, talking to people, and you sit and observe. One Nation didn't even send any people to the booth. They didn't put posters up. They didn't do anything, okay? They were relying on the online racist reactionary vote. They didn't even bother showing up, okay? The Liberal Party had some guy who was basically, if you could create an archetype of an online guy with a flag, Australian flag with a blue check, talking about like how Labor is responsible for the housing crisis because they're in government right now. If you could come up, think of that guy is the guy who was manning the booth. But when you actually watched him in his surroundings, he was a weirdo. Okay? And I found out afterwards, it was so funny because I scrutineered with him as well. And it was very funny because they told me at the party afterwards that this guy had actually flown to Mar-a-Lago and was a big Trump fan, and like was fully in that sort of cult, and he was like a full-on cooker. And I was like, fuck, I got a real live one for 2 hours in captivity, and I didn't know that he was one, right? And it was like, oh fuck, I could have, because he sat there, but what he was doing was goading me the whole time. So he'd sit there and start poking at me. You know what they do? They just poke at you. Like this guy was a Twitter guy. Well, he was an ex-guy, a guy who, or LinkedIn or whatever, the guy that shows up arrogant, doesn't know what he's talking about, but basically implies that you're the stupid one, okay? But when you see them in real life, in the flesh, okay, not online, in the flesh, first of all, he's a human being. Okay, and we actually managed to I liked him in the end. We had a good old chat, and still a person. However, in that, because in Australia, like on election day, it's nothing like America. I'm just so grateful for the calmness, the boringness, and the overall friendliness. I think it comes down to, because we're a sporting nation, there is something magical about our country that is about like sport with sports. Okay. I'm not into sports. It's not my thing, but there's something sporting about our culture. Again, not to generalize, but we understand there's something in the social contract where we understand that what's on the field is separate from what's off the field. So you can, even in Parliament, if you look at our Parliament and you have question time, okay, and you go in and they're argy-bargy and they're fucking saying whatever and they're going at it and whatever. Then they go and they have lunch in the same dining room and they're chatting and shaking handshakes. It's all sporting, right? It's the same thing on election day. When you go on, if you're working in a booth, you'll have experienced this, where you will, not so much the young ones, because the young ones, see, that's the thing, that's been a shift. But this is where I feel like I can provide some wisdom to people. But I wasn't on the booth handing out votes. I was sort of doing other stuff, but I did scrutiny. And this has been my experience. It doesn't matter what party you're on. So when I walked up to the booth, everyone's friendly with each other. They're chatting away. They're friendly. They, agree to disagree, but they're overall, someone needs to go to the toilet. He'll sit there and hand out the how to votes for the other guy because people will ask for them. You've got that, no one's sort of sabotaging anybody, like even scrutineering. Like I was basically like, well, I gave him a bit of shit, and I said, well, I'd go harder if it was going to make a difference to the result, mate. We've already won. And, it's a bit of banter, but it was all nice banter. It's not like the United States. And I think we need to remember that it is not like the United States. And what we have is something very special. Okay? It's something very boring and very procedural, very bureaucratic, but quite beautiful. Okay? And with Paul's like, oh, can't believe I have to vote. And I say, no, you get to vote. You get to vote peacefully. He was upset that he missed out on his sausage. Okay? Like one thing that they have here is that this, because the booths are usually the local primary school or high school or whatever, they usually will have a fundraising like a cake stall and a sausage sizzle and all of that sort of stuff. Okay? Cookout for the Americans. And, you'll just go and it's kind of a ritual, right? You'll go and you'll buy your sausage. And Paul was upset because we went a bit late and because I'd been busy and we were and he missed out on his sausage. So he went to the shop and bought his own sausages because it's it's pretty funny. But it's something quite magical about the way our elections run. And I just it brought me back to remembering that we're not fucking America. All of this internet stuff is astroturf to shit. Okay? It is astroturf to shit. Also, even when you are face to face with someone who would be someone attacking you online, it doesn't happen offline. Okay? He's not your enemy. You just got to figure out a way to reach common ground. Like one thing I did do, because I think that there was a couple of times when the young'uns were sort of, slagging off One Nation in their absence and the Nats and that sort of stuff. And, I did say to them, remember that, that they are colleagues, right? So if the Nationals were to get elected in the upper house, you've still got to work with them. They're not your enemy. And it's a democracy and rural WA likes the Nationals. They represent rural WA. I would argue, I think they have done a good job over the years of being a solid representative of rural WA because the urban parties do tend to not represent the largest spread out electorate, I think, in the world, in the Western world at least. Okay. Rural and remote Australia is in sore need of representation. And they do a role to play. So I kind of pulled her up a little bit in good fun. Nothing like, oh, don't be rude. But, there's this little thing when you're young in politics, you see it. And this is, again, what we're seeing online, Reddit. We're seeing all these things where they think that we don't have to work together. They think that we don't have to get along. And they think that these internet arguments get you anywhere, which they don't. Like a big part of politics in particular is getting stuff through Parliament, negotiating and figuring stuff out, figuring out win-win. Because we don't have executive orders in this country. You can't just turn around and go, I am, going to introduce this policy. You need one of the if you're a Green and you have a policy, you need one of the major parties to back you, if not both. If it's a conscience vote, okay? You need to get through Parliament in order to get anything done. And that means everyone has to work together. And that's a beautiful thing about our system is that it somewhat forces you to vote, first of all, forces you to think about your politics for at least an hour, okay? And for the most, I've noticed actually like the informal votes are actually dropping, which I find very cool. But you've got to work together with people that you might not agree with because you've got to get it through Parliament. And it's a great system. It's a system that works pretty well. And I think that a lot of people, when they're online and they're hiding behind their pseudonyms and hiding, being anonymous and all that sort of stuff, they're allowed to, make perfect be the enemy of the good, and also because their brain is rotted from American-dominated discourse, and they don't necessarily have, like I've talked about this Tumblr brain rot shit before, they mean well, and they're young, and they don't understand that you got to work with people that you don't like to get stuff done. And, there's something there in that where if there's anything in terms of content, how do you work together? Conflict, it comes down to, can I play a role in talking people out of this stuff? But it won't, because people are now too far gone. Okay, it's been 5 years since COVID hit. They've had plenty of opportunities to come back out of this, and they're not. Like, there's plenty of people I've personally witnessed lose their minds. And it has to run its course, unfortunately. But I don't feel like this online stuff is necessarily representative of the vast majority of people. Okay. America, maybe, because their, landscape is a bit different. But even then, I don't think but we need to remember that we're different. Okay. We run differently. We are actually a democracy. Okay. You might, like, some of this, the one thing that's starting to fucking annoy me, this duopoly talk. We don't have a duopoly here. Okay. It generally, okay. Also, if you factor in, I want to do a bit more educational content for this stuff, but we don't necessarily have a duopoly, because our major parties have sort of sub-parties within them, factions, okay? So a lot of what ALP and Labor do is that they organise a lot of their policy and negotiate a lot of their policy ahead of time, ahead of Parliament. So a lot of it is that a lot of the chaos that you would get from a multi-party system, the parties sort of handle it, if that makes sense. And that's how I will know if someone hasn't really meaningfully been involved in a political sense, like it hasn't gotten involved, is because they don't understand that there's factions within parties. Like the Liberal Party in Australia is the right-wing party here. Like, they have wets and dries, okay? The Teals are kind of more like a wet Liberal, okay, which is like a moderate Liberal. Kind of like your traditional old school Malcolm Turnbull Liberal Party, not sort of full fucking fash MAGA that's taken over the party lately. But then you've got, and that a lot of that is the result of Gina Reinhardt having joined the Trump cult. And that's what I find really interesting, is that because the donors joined, it's the money. The money joined the cult, so the politicians have to fucking appease the donor, right? That kind of, like, that's the thing. But in the Labor Party, you have a socialist wing of the Labor Party. You have a socialist left, and that gets negotiated into a policy platform over time. Now, are there problems with that? Of course there are. Nothing is ever perfect. The people who don't get 100% of what they want are always going to whinge online about how they didn't get 100% of what they want. But usually what they will do is, and same thing with experts, okay? So one thing, like if you're talking about, let's say, the social media ban as a policy, like that's come up. Most of the experts were saying, oh, it's bad, blah, 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 it's terrible, but I don't oppose it. Because they haven't gotten 100% of what they want. They're moaning, but they don't object to it in principle. And I think that you need to look at that and understand that that's how our process works, which is lots and lots and lots of different people, interests, minds coming together, kind of like the ideal pluralism, okay? Coming together, getting on the field, having a punch-up, leaving, and working together for the betterment of Australia. Now, I think we should fucking withdraw from AUKUS. I think we should kick them out of Pine Gap. I think all of those things. I think it might be naive to think that that's actually a good idea. I think it might be a naive view. But I think that, obviously we need to think about, because obviously there's, we're fucked either way. China doesn't have the capability against the US right now to protect us. And if we did that, and there's not much we can do. We're kind of fucked when it comes to the US, and especially with Israel and that sort of stuff. So we're fucked there. You can't let perfect be the enemy of the good in this place, okay? Now, if you vote Green, go for it. Just vote Labor ahead of Liberal. We're mates, okay? If you vote One Nation, vote One Nation. Go for it. You care. That's what the system's designed for you to vote for who you want to vote for, but for it to trickle to a party that can actually get shit done. It still gets counted and you still get a say. And so let it trickle to Labor. We got no beef, okay? And that's how I feel about it all right? Because Labor's better than the Liberal Party. Economically, in terms of outcomes, in terms of policy, in terms of who they get their money from. They don't get their money from corporations. They get their money from unions, okay? They do get it from some corporations, but, I'm saying for the most part it's from unions, okay? Different stuff, different thing. And I think that it's just like, for me, what I don't think that the election's going to be as close as people say. I think that people hate Dutton so much that it's going to affect. I think that the media are trying to make fetch happen by making claims about that. They're just like, polls are skewed. Who has answered a poll? Have you answered one? I haven't answered a poll in fucking years. I think the last poll I got a call for was Roy Morgan. Or was it Nielsen? Back in fucking, God, it was the 90s. Okay? Like, and online sentiment is unreliable. Okay? It's all astroturfed. It's not reliable. Okay? Especially if you're looking at X or Blue Sky or anything like that, if you don't know the makeup of those platforms, there's no sample that is reliable when it comes to online. If it's open, an online survey, it's unreliable, okay? And it is skewed right. It's not, and the media, Murdoch backs the winner. I'm noticing a shift. I think he's going to back the winner. I think he's in a process of transitioning because Dutton's stepping on so many rakes that I think that he'll just, and he's also got don't forget that there's a personal component to and petty personal component to everything that Murdoch does, and that is that the Murdoch Royal Commission, right? They don't forget that there's a whole. If you have object permanence, you understand that there's some such thing as one thing happening, and then there being a thing that happens after that. As a result of that other thing, it's not just who's in charge right now. It's bad. Therefore, who's in charge right now is bad. It doesn't work. It's like that. If you think like that, you're an idiot. And frankly, not worth my time. And frankly, cooked. And so that's where I don't know where talking about this stuff. It's I don't know where it can be of actual value to people. I can help them get out of the culture wars. I can help talk sense about it. But I mean, I can explain how things work, but I mean, I don't know whether people are interested in that, right? I don't know whether people want to know how preferential voting works and why it's great and why Australia's great. You'll lose the Americans for a start because they think America's great. So that's kind of the problem that I've got. And also I've got to be careful when I talk about law. I can't talk about law. So it's kind of like I can't be perceived to be talking about it. I can't be perceived to be giving advice about it. And it's just one of those things where, I mean, I can talk sort of generally around how the systems work, but I can't be perceived to be practicing law without a license. That's kind of what you've got to be able to defend, okay? Which I'm not gonna. So I just err on the side of caution there and just don't. But that obviously cuts out a whole bunch of stuff that I'm reading every day because that's what I'm reading every day. So it's kind of a tricky thing. So I just sit here and I'll talk and, I can talk about tech, but I'm a bit fatigued by tech because it's broken. And there's not much really that we can do, like I said, like other than sort of boring procedural things that really I don't think people are very interested in. So that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of this stuff. I also am living in the battleground seat for the federal election coming up in May, probably May. I imagine it's going to be May, in one of the big battleground seats, which will determine the election. And I've usually lived in safe seats, either safe Liberal or safe Labor. I've never been in a marginal seat before. So obviously I want to help there. So I think it's actually going to be easier. I think it's going to go better than people are predicting. I think the local member is, from what I can see, well liked. The person that they're running against him, I don't know much about, but I need to look into. But I don't see, based on the numbers that I saw. Again, state and federal. The thing about WA is that we don't vote federally. We tend to vote differently federally than we do state. Like, we love our state Labor government, but it's always a little trickier with WA. Also because our electorates are more, when they're bigger, they're more of a melting pot economically than the eastern states. Because here, a federal seat will be sort of inner, like my particular seat. I'm right in the middle of it. Is that you'll have sort of the rich areas, like on the river mansions, sort of blue Liberal seat like area. These have been traditionally blue areas, but property prices have sort of sprawled out, and it goes out as far as the new estates and the new sort of traditional young family estates. But the problem with that is that property prices have all just exploded, where everyone's house is $1 million, okay, and at minimum, okay. That it's very weird and interesting to see, because it's an interesting test on what happens, because a lot of Australia's property market is imaginary money, because if you can't sell the house and profit in any way, you've got to buy another house, and every house it's like you're not wealthy just because your house price goes up. So there's a weird kind of shift that's happening, but because eastern states electorates are a lot more population dense, they're a lot smaller and a lot more concentrated in terms of demographics, like North Sydney, where I lived before. That was Joe Hockey's old seat. That was all blue. That was all very rich Sydney people, right? I was renting there, of course, but so it was a lot smaller versus here, where it's a lot more sprawled out. You'll have a greater spread, and the more that you spread out to the sort of newer suburbs and the newer outer burbs, the more likely they are to vote Labor. Okay. But then you've also got kind of your inner, like here we've got parts of Fremantle, which is also, I'm in Tangney, right? So, but we've also got parts of Fremantle, which is sort of more green, teal, hippy-dippy territory, and so that makes things a bit more spicy. And then it also depends on how many candidates are on the ticket, okay? Because those preference flows can do some interesting, you can have some interesting flows, okay? So it's going to be an interesting time. But I don't know whether people are actually very interested in this stuff, because it's, people are usually interested in it once every 4 years. And it's like, I have knowledge in those 4 years. And generally I have, knowledge on, I know a lot about tech, but at the same time, like, a lot of tech policy is kind of stagnant with the situation with Musk and Meta they're just doing whatever the fuck they want. And I can explain stuff to an extent. But again, I'm also not an American lawyer, so I can't, I can only explain things to a point. And I don't know whether people want to hear that. I can just answer people. If you've got questions, it's probably an easier way to go about things. But I could probably start to do a bit more engaging with sort of Reddit posts or something. I don't know, like Reddit discussions and talking about that. But a lot of it is that I just don't. There's a lot I want to say, and there's a lot I can talk about, but I'm not going to sit there doing fucking drama slop. I'm not going to sit there doing culture war slop. I'm not going to do internet slop. But I also can't talk about the law, and I can talk about the law, but I can't really, be perceived to be giving legal advice. I can't be, I can, do funny stuff and whatever, but a lot of it is more about and also just the expense and time and effort and energy that goes into producing streams and videos and stuff. Like it's not a zero cost associated with it, right? So it's if your time is actually something that you bill for or that you value, then it's something, like editing clips takes 2 or 3 days out of a week to even begin. And then if I was going to pre-record videos, it's like writing and scripting and recording and editing. That's a whole week of work for most people. Okay. And I know it might look like, a few minutes for you, but for others, if you actually want to do anything, it's time consuming, costly, and it doesn't make me any money. It's not profitable at all. Okay. I lose money every time I turn on the stream. Anyway, but again, I just enjoy it. So it's just, I've got to sit down and work out what I want out of my web presence moving forward. I do like writing about stuff. I do like this. I do like the interaction that I get. But sometimes you also can just see this whole internet wave that I rode, and this thing where I was the lady of the moment for a bit and for a time, and you can go, well, that was just a season of my life, and you can move forward and go, you know what, that's not my life now. And that's on the table as well, where I just kind of disappear and don't do this anymore. But I do like it because it does give me skills. So, but that's kind of where I'm at. So it's like, it's an interesting kind of situation to be in, where I've been doing this now for 6 years, believe it or not. It's kind of been stagnant, and that's my own fault. But it's, it's just because I don't really want to engage in the practices that I know get clicks, and it's just, I think it's part of the problem, and I don't want to feed that problem. But I'm also not a serious journalist. I'm not a document. I don't want to. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it's hard to think about what I want to actually do. I could just, like, again, I'm funny as well, so it's not really, Yes, look at me being funny right now. It's time for a drink. This is my version of funny. I don't know, it's just content is so transactional. And if I start recording stuff for LinkedIn, it's like, tell me I want to know, they want me to either be a psychic or like predict things or do analysis of things. And it's like, well, it's hard to do analysis of things when it's unstable. I don't know what the answers are, and maybe, showing up and saying, I don't know. It's okay to not know. It's okay for it to have lots of potential outcomes. It's okay for it to be, unclear. Maybe that's enough. Maybe just showing up and talking about how it's unclear and making it okay for it to not have an answer. Maybe that's enough. And that's quite possibly true, So, but yeah, that's sort of where I'm at. But honestly, I think that, especially if you're an Aussie right now watching this, we're not America. This is online shit. It's internet shit. And if you are thinking that this culture war shit is real, I would say that you should go to a club or somewhere where there is go to a networking event or somewhere where there's maybe a sample size of 100 people, and start talking about this stuff and just observe people's reactions to it. You're the weirdo in the room. Okay. And I think you've got to understand that makes people very uncomfortable. It makes people, like detach socially from people. That's why people are becoming more isolated online and getting weirder and weirder and worse, especially on things like X, is because people they've never come back from COVID. They're stuck online. They're now working from, again, I'm not blaming working from home, but working from home is part of it because getting that social interaction is important, even if it's a little bit. And they're showing up and they're kind of just talking shit because they've been on the internet all day, talking shit about what. And so I'm the same. I'm saying I'm lucky that I've got my sons and my husband who go, that's enough internet for you. And also because I have to watch, like because of the tech law thing, I have to watch the happenings with tech. And that means that I have to pay more attention to fuckwits like Zuckerberg and Musk and what they're doing and have to, because US tech law, really, really is where it's at. You're not really going to be able to regulate much if they just ignore the law. There's not much, there's nothing you can, if he's going to ignore the courts, there's nothing you can do. Okay. And so, so I have to kind of engage with a lot of what's happening but the culture wars just infects every part of it. Like when I read tech news, like Tech Dirt, Elon Musk and fucking this shit. And then I go to 404 Media. It's fucking that. And it's just like, I'm lucky that I've got real world relationships, but even then, I think that this is the mistake I think that they're making, is that like the LNP think they can just astroturf and spam their way into government, and people are switched off from the news. They're not paying attention. They're quitting social media. They're quite quitting social media, and they're not seeing the shit that we're seeing because we're online, and that's our whole world because that's what we do. And we don't realize that there's 90% of people are actually just not paying attention to this shit. And again, that was always the case up until COVID, and then people were stuck online with COVID and were like, what the fuck is this? But some never came out. Some never came back from COVID. They're still talking about COVID. Joe Rogan, still talking about fucking COVID. Okay. And it's like, you know what? Like, I think some people got lost in the matrix and never came out. But there are a bunch of people that have moved on and they've gone back to their lives. And if you talk to people, even if they are people who you disagree with online, you'll find that offline, they're like, it is markedly noticeable who has had too much internet in a room. You see them coming because they're combative. They are starting shit, but everyone else actually isolates them from everyone else. Okay. And that's something that I've just observed. And that's again, sample size of sort of one. But I think that that's actually a trend that will continue, that people have understood that this internet thing was great. It was fun for a time. Social media was great for a time. But I feel like we are actually heading back to the internet being a utility for most people. And in terms of our social content interaction and those sorts of things, going back to sort of it being forum wars in the 90s. But with people who are stupid and addicted and mentally ill, not people with a, modicum of intelligence who could actually dial up to the internet and participate. So what I think that's actually happening is that we're seeing a regression. People just aren't using it. I think that if you had access to authentic, real data, which we won't, of Meta, Threads, Blue Sky, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that sort of stuff, I think you'll see an overall just drop in users. And you could control for fake accounts, bots, all that sort of stuff. I think you'll see that there has been a massive drop in engagement, interaction, across the board, and the world has left the internet behind. That's what I think. Unless you're in America, and I'm sorry, I can't help you. I can't. Like, I'm just done. I can't deal with your shit. We've got our own shit. We've got our own stuff. Like, and I feel like our democracy is definitely worth protecting. It is worth saving, and it is worth fighting for. And it's worth at least learning a bit about. Like, I get excited during election time because it's wonderful how lucky we are. We are so lucky that we get complacent, and we're so fortunate that we fucking moan all the time, and we don't realize, we don't pause and think about how great. Like, if you actually know the history of this country, and especially the history of the labour movement and how this country comes about and continues to be built over time, I think you have, I don't think you'd be complaining about it. I think if you're sitting there complaining about duopolies and how both sides are terrible, and I think you have an infant's understanding of the world and politics, and it's a sign to me that you don't understand the history of this country at all, because the struggle that we've been through to get here is incredible, okay? And if you're just going to import US nonsense, I think it's it's silly. We're not American. It's stupid, this woke bullshit. It's woke American, like American bullshit. And it's like, it doesn't apply here. Yes, colonialism but it's a different story. It's a very different story. Worse in some ways, better in some, but diverse. Okay, and I think that's, maybe I want to talk more about those sorts of things, like a history of Australia, or like how stuff works, or the origin of stuff. I mean, something as simple as in Queensland, when they got rid of their upper house, like the cool stories around that and how they fucking did that. It's really fun. It's funny shit. Australia has an amazing history, but again, that's something where when you are doing history explainer videos, that's something where you got to change tack, and you've got to actually produce a video essay with graphics and all of that sort of stuff, and you got to, that's a lot of work. Like, that's something that I would take 3 to 6 months to get done. Every time I did one, because I can't pay people to do stuff. That would be how long it would take me around everything else I've got to do. But it'd be great to do that stuff. Like, I love doing political education and education stuff, but it's there's only so much you can do with just a talking head, right? It's not really, but that's okay. Anyway, that's where I'm at with this. But this stuff, again, you got to understand, America dominates the internet. Americans dominate the internet, and behind that, the UK. Okay, in English-speaking nations. But we're not them. Okay, we need to stop letting their culture wars infect our shit and actually start like doing things our way. And so maybe I can do some, you're not going to reach the Americans. I've realized that I'm not going to reach the Americans. Okay, it's just not going to happen. They're too far gone, and they don't listen to anyone who's not American. They do love to listen to Canadians when they're Nazis, but other than that, watch the Sam Cedar thing, the Sam Cedar Jubilee thing. That actually made me realise, just like, because Sam Cedar, that's what it felt like working this election, is I was talking to people like that, and they're not winning votes. They're online, yes. There's a swarm of them online. They just declare that they're right. They say things that are untrue, and then make it true with like bots and shit. But ultimately, they're dumb, and they're fucking idiots, and they don't know what they're talking about, and they have no policy. They have no worldview. And it's just internet shit. It is pointless. And like, I can explain how it affects real life, because I can definitely tell what media diet someone has by talking to them for about 5 minutes. I can tell what people are reading, and I can tell if someone needs intervention within 5 minutes, because obviously I've, studied this brain rot like more than anybody else. And fell for it there's, like we all fall for that stuff sometimes. Okay. But it's, where this channel fits, where the streams fit, I don't know. I think just coming on and talking is enough. Okay. It won't get engagement. It won't get views. It's okay. You may get the occasional dickhead clip. or whatever. If you've got questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. You know, like if you've got ideas, if you want me to see, a lot of it is just like, I don't know whether people want to know how stuff works. I don't know whether people want these stories. If you do, ask me and I'll do one. A lot of it is just, I have kind of this infrastructure, for lack of a better word, set up to do this, and I enjoy it. I don't necessarily want to be a YouTuber as such, because, you know, it's not really, it's not something I consider to matter. I think we should listen to people less on, honestly, I think people should stop listening to YouTube and start reading. But yeah, so, you know, like that's the thing, is that I'm at odds with the medium. Like the stuff that I want to do is at odds with the medium that I'm in. And I'd be happy to talk to people. I'd be happy to talk to, happy to show up and co-host with people if they want. I don't know. I'm thinking about where it is. I may just delete it all. That's another option. And you know, not do it. That's another option as well. Because I did notice that it's really, actually, I want to talk about this in the next stream, about Facebook and how they're deleting old content on Facebook. They're deleting old videos. And like, they're kind of really doing that bait and switch, because a lot of the reason why we've got to start thinking about legacy stuff. And part of the reason why Facebook was appealing to begin with was that you could put your life there. And that you could, you know, put your life events and all that sort of stuff. But now they're saying we're deleting those old videos. If you don't, here you go. We got, see how, like, it's like, well, isn't my old videos part of that, like, thing, the value proposition that you sold? Like, didn't you make a promise that you would store those videos, and now you're just going to delete them? So if I die, what happens to my data? Am I gone now? And I went through that as well with Twitter when I deleted all my tweets. And went through all that. It doesn't exist anymore. None of the last 15 years, 2011, 14 years. That was my second account in 2011. So, yeah, 14 years of my life doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. I've got to back up. But I'm just saying, like, that was their value proposition at the time. Life events and telling your story and connecting. And now you get an email from Facebook saying we're deleting everything if you don't, do you want to back it up? And you go, well, that wasn't the deal, was it? Now it's just content that's taking up space. And it's like, okay, that's interesting from a like post-death digital legacy point of view, isn't it? And now I had a product around that, but couldn't get it off the ground because it was just too risky. It was a cybersecurity, like it was going to cost millions and millions in infrastructure to keep it secure. And when you're dealing with people's private data, like secure data, like very like deepest, darkest secrets, it wouldn't get off the ground. But but you know, so I know quite a lot about this kind of legacy planning as well. And people aren't really thinking about like what's there when they're gone, because we're having to delete these things. And that's a whole area of life that's now gone. And I'm thinking about the same thing with my website and my blog. And, you know, it's not what it was supposed to be. It was not what the promise was. I mean, I like the idea that my old Facebook videos are being deleted because, you know, I don't necessarily want some of those old fucking streams to be, you know, up there because they're being, you know, but because they're, you know, I was sort of leaning into the culture wars a bit and A/B testing some shit and, you know, all that. But for the most part, you know, you got to start thinking about those things. But maybe it is a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing that it was just for a time from, you know, 1998 to 2012. There was a time where we all lost our minds and thought that we should share our secrets online, and they got what they wanted. They stole all of our stories and our data, and they managed to use it to train their AIs. And now, you know, it's we're no longer useful to them. They've used it, they've trained on it, so now they're discarding it, and they're just basically just discarding us. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe aside from the whole Palantir training shit, whatever. Maybe it is actually a good thing that we can just now somewhat go, well, I mean, we can't go dark because they don't need us to post anymore because they are harvesting our data whether we post or not now. But, you know, maybe we can just go fuck it and not be addicted to the internet anymore and just use it as a tool and ignore it and go leave the house without our phones, you know, and because we don't need to do that anymore. Leave the house without your phone, talk to a person, you know, don't have your headphones in, just go walking. Go to an event without your phone, you know, or something like that once a week. And you'll start to realize that if you're stuck online, you're the weird one. Okay. And that might actually sort of pull you out of whatever it is that you're sort of, you know, whatever it is that you're going through. So yeah, anyway, that's where I'm at. What time is it? An hour. I feel like I don't really have much else to talk about because there is, you know, obviously a lot's been going on. So, I mean, the answer to everything is log off, go away, turn off your phone, go for a walk, talk to people, you know, take a long bath, read a book, do self-care, you know, all that sort of stuff. If you're in America, same thing, but show up to things in person, make friends with your neighbors, share food with people, you know, be kind to people, you know, like it comes down to the basics. It is actually one thing that's interesting about the WA election is seeing the pundits sort of go, WA is such an anomaly. Why is this thing? What is so weird in WA that is like going against the rest of the trends? And it's like, it's called decent people who are in their community, who live in their community, showing up, talking to people, being an MP, representing their people. They get re-elected. What are the odds of that? They're in the community. Like the guy that I worked with, who was a fucking councillor before he ran, and then he's in his upper house and now his lower house. And he's a nice guy with young kids. He's an MP. He's just a decent person. It's amazing how this media class are so detached from like the reality of politics, or that they're just all about their spreadsheets, that they can't see what's right in their face, which is be a decent person that people like and they will vote for you. Oh, but this person has money. I can't generalize based on their income. Yes, because you don't understand that people just want connection and they want to feel like their representatives have their back. Everyone wants to feel that way. And WA Labor in particular don't have a fucking active Twitter account. I wonder if there's a relationship there. You know, they do good policies. They show up. They talk to people. They're nice people. And it's like, it's not hard. It's not rocket science. And it's like, that's why again, I could be wrong. I have misread it in the past. But I feel like Tangney's not as much of a battleground as it'll be close, but I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be. I think that he's pretty well liked and he's been active in the community. Like I don't know. I think that counts for something. And I think that it's just politics 101. It's just. People recognise you. They see you. That's why Basil Zempilas, despite being a fuckwit, that's why he won. People see his face. They recognise him. They go, oh, he exists. Oh, okay, I'll vote for him. That's it. Be in the community. Be recognisable. Build yourself a profile. Not that difficult. Well, it is kind of difficult because, you know, you got to interact with the public all day, every day. But, you know, I'm just saying, like, you know, do good work. I do believe that it's still, regardless of all of the fucking, whinging fucking lefties online that say that it all sucks and it's all terrible and it's all people who never show up, they never do anything. That, you do get what you put out. You do get out what you put in, most of the time. And, I think that rule still applies in most cases. If you're not focusing on America and like whatever's going on there, like that's an internet-driven shit show that is largely fueled by their media and their, whatever is going on there. But we're not them. We're not America. I think that people need to switch off from that stuff more. And again, this is as much for me as it is for anyone else. And I think that it's just, it doesn't exist, especially on X. It's all astroturfs. It's all bots. It's all bots. AI, ChatGPT, bots. They are using the API to just write opinions. Like, oh my God, I'm seeing fucking people getting Grok to do their answering and arguing for them now. And it's like, oh my God, talk about missing the point. Oh my God. Now it's just people going at Grok, at each other. It's so pointless. Why? To own them. It's like, do something else with your day. Just go and talk to a person. Go sit in a cafe. Go to a library. Hang out without your phone. Go and just read a physical book. Go to walk. I live across the road, around the corner from the library. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to leave my phone at home. And I'll say hello to people along the way. I think you'd be surprised that you might be actually the person who's the problem. Anyway, don't watch me. Log off. See the dilemma I've got? Anyway, I'm going to go. I love you. It's been an hour and I'm gotta go. I've been sick, so I've still got it. I still fade pretty fast. But I will be back on maybe tomorrow, back on schedule, but I'll see how I go. I think I'm heading into a week where I've got 3 assignments due in the same week. So I got to go away, and I'm at that part of law school where I'm too far in to quit, but I'm fucking like so over it. It's just like that. Yeah, I hate that. And I don't want to do it because I hate it. But it's just, yeah, I don't know why I'm doing it, honestly. Anyway, because you still got a year afterwards, 1 to 2 years after you get your law degree before you're even a lawyer, full lawyer that can set up a practice. Now I've got to look to find a supervisor who can. Anyway, lots of stuff. Anyway, I love you. Take care. And let me know if you want me to talk about anything in particular. Not in the YouTube comments. Other channels. Email me or something. Or if I follow you on X, then DM or whatever. But like, it's just yeah. I know someone said to do wills and estates, and I'm like, no. I don't want to talk about one thing. I want to talk about lots of things. It's just, if there's anything particular you'd like me to talk about, then I will. But otherwise, it's just sitting here until I figure out the world and what's going on and whether it's even worth doing this stuff. Because I don't think people really value this. I think they want slop, and they want a two-dimensional person to feed them easy answers, if I'm honest with you. And I know you want reassurance, but I can't give you that because things are too uncertain. But I can make you feel more at peace with chaos, I suppose. Because I'm okay with chaos. Chaos is my natural state. But yeah, anyway, so I'm going to go. I love you. I'll be back maybe tomorrow, if not next Tuesday. Okay. All right. Bye.